Good afternoon. And firstly, thanks to the preceding speakers who have eloquently set the scene for my presentation. My name is Kate Snaddon from the Freshwater Research Centre in the Western Cape. I will be presenting on a key component of Phase 2 of the FBIS project, namely harnessing wetland biodiversity data onto the Freshwater Biodiversity Information System. I would like to acknowledge my co-authors and fellow wetland team members, Nancy Job from Sanby and Dean Ollis, also of the Freshwater Research Centre. As Helen indicated earlier, FBIS has entered a second phase, having been focused on rivers data during the first phase. A large component of the second phase of the project is the incorporation of wetlands into the database, not as a separate module, but merging wetlands and rivers equally and seamlessly as different types of aquatic ecosystem. The FBIS wetland project commenced in May of this year and will run until April 2024. As an introduction to the FBIS wetland project, I would like to visit our main aims and objectives. The wetlands team aims to build on the successes of the river focus phase of the project. The first phase of the project, and indeed the three preceding talks today, have set the bar high, and it is a pleasure to be joining such a highly professional team, hopefully carrying the wetlands community along with us. We want to respond to the needs of the users. There is a clear need for a central repository of wetland biodiversity data. And in centralizing data and making it easily accessible through user interfaces, with useful searchable filters and graphics generated for report writing, we hope to improve the decision-making around the conservation and management of wetlands. And over the longer term, to be able to monitor trajectories of change within wetlands. Lastly, we're responding to the trend towards more explicit legislation that guides and regulates sensitivity assessments and environmental impact assessments. We are all becoming more familiar with the EIA screening tool and the species and ecosystem environmental assessment guidelines. FBIS should become the go-to site for aquatic biodiversity data in order to fulfill the requirements of these protocols. Now down to the nuts and bolts of the project. We're essentially embarking on three main activities. We're currently engaged in identifying key spatial layers and search filters. In other words, what do you see when you land on the FBIS map? And how would you want to search for sites or records? The next step is to identify wetland data modules and the types of biotic and site indices we may want to access as users, and how these are displayed as dashboards. Lastly, we will identify, clean, and import wetland datasets into FBIS for as long as time and budget will allow. Let's return to this organogram from Helen's talk earlier today and match our wetland project activities to the 5 pillars that make up the Freshwater Biodiversity Information System. Wetland spatial layers are used to provide the wetland context data for a particular site. The filters are used to refine the search for a particular record. The existing rivers component of FBIS draws on a number of maps and attributes, and the wetlands component will be built in a very similar way. National Wetlands Map 6 will form the backbone of the spatial information. Added to this will be other layers, such as the artificial wetlands layer and vegetation types layer from NBA 2018. Land cover maps will be served, along with the INFIPA subquaternaries or quinaries, and possibly others, such as the groundwater-linked landscapes, such as coastal plains and karst landscapes. Each spatial layer added to the FBIS database brings with it all the attributes associated with it, such as wetland type, vegetation bioregion, ecosystem threat status, and so on. The possibilities really are endless, but time and budget may just rein us in. So moving on to the data modules and biotic indices, currently there are 4 biodiversity modules: fish, aquatic invertebrates, algae, and odonate adults. The first 3 focus on rivers at the moment, while odonates span aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. FBIS Phase 2 will bring in a frog module and a wetland plant module, and will be adding wetland data to the existing 4 modules. Abiotic data, such as water quality data, will also be uploaded onto FBIS. Biotic indices that we are looking to include on a wetland-specific dashboard are wet health, wet ecoservices, and ecological importance and sensitivity. 33 is the identification of wetland data sets for inclusion by the team into the database. This is where the hard slog happens. This involves the cleaning and organizing of data onto upload templates that can be digested by FBIS. We are keen to cast the net as widely as possible, with the aim being to find large data sets for bulk upload. As soon as the wetland component of FBIS goes live, the responsibility is then passed on to all of you out there to upload your own data going forward, and ideally also to look deeply into your real and virtual files and release the dusty data sitting there. As mentioned already, plants will be added to FBIS for the first time. SANBI is leading this activity and will be entering upwards of 940 wetland plant species onto the database. We will then also add invertebrates, algae, fish, amphibians, and abiotic data as time goes by. Of course, with every record, we will be uploading to the knowledge database the downloadable PDFs, DOIs, and URL links to all data sources. Turning now to the dashboards that are available to the user, you may recall that there are overview and detailed dashboards. Here is an example of a single site SAS dashboard showing some of the context data for a river site at which a SAS sample was collected. The user can upload a photograph or several photos of the site, and a map is generated that can be downloaded and used in a report. More detailed information is shown graphically, including in the SAS example, the proportion of sensitive versus tolerant taxa, macroinvertebrate taxa that were recorded at the site. FBIS also provides the corresponding ecological category for the site based on the SAS results. All component features of the dashboards can be downloaded for later use. In wetland terms, this could look like this: replacing invertebrates with wetland plants and showing graphically the proportion of obligate versus facultative wetland plants at that particular wetland site. The incorporation of wetland health data could also be displayed for a particular wetland site, and the wetland type automatically served to the user, extracted from National Wetland Map 6. The example I've used here is an Albany Thicket Depression with an overall PES of category C. I thought it might be useful to look at a sample dataset which we are currently working on. The study was located in the Western Cape and aimed to explore the link between soil moisture and algal community dynamics in 10 seep wetlands in the Western Cape. The study recorded approximately 280 species of algae, sampled as shallow sediment cores across transects through the seeps. We are now cleaning and transforming the species occurrence data into uploadable spreadsheets for incorporation into the database. The data are recorded as algal densities, as algal cells per meter squared, recorded at a number of sites over time and across soil wetness gradients. Here's a photograph of the site. showing the 3 transects across the wetland and the gradients of soil wetness from perennially saturated through to intermittently saturated. These are detailed data sets, and now they won't just be sitting on a shelf gathering dust, but will become available to all users. So to end off, I want to dangle a carrot or two in front of you to encourage you to watch this space and to contribute to the growth of FBIS. Why would you add your data to FBIS? Firstly, there's acknowledgement, the pat on the back. All reports, projects, sources are included in the metadata for each record. Here's the opportunity to upcycle and repurpose your hard-won data. Consultants out there, you need to find the time to upload your data and make it available to all and get it out of those reports. Ultimately, the strength and usefulness of databases such as FBIS for decision-making and tracking trends depends on the data contained in them. Tools such as the EIA screening tool, Cape Farm Mapper, protocols for impact assessment will themselves be strengthened if they link to the comprehensive and up-to-date biodiversity data that will be served on FBIS in the next couple of years. Thank you for listening.